Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Magician's Thoughts On. You are listening to Magic Dara, and you're very welcome to the show. So here we go again, guys. It's time to dig in deep and delve into another mental, crazy, intellectual topic, whatever way you want to look at it. We're going to have a discussion today about a very controversial topic, and here I go again with warnings. But I think this one really does warrant a warning, guys. This topic can be deeply and psychologically unsettling for people. If you go online and you look into this topic, you'll find forums where people essentially admit to having a complete psychological and mental breakdown as a consequence of delving into this topic. So if that scares you, then tune out right now, because what we're about to delve into really is messed up, and the ramifications of coming to believe, as I do in this particular podcast, they're significant. There's absolutely no denying it. So that said, the topic of discussion for today is free will, or as I'm going to argue, the lack thereof. So guys, as per usual, I'm going to start off with a definition. What does Google have to say about free will? Well, free will, according to Google, is defined as the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate, the ability to act at one's own discretion. Sounds good, right? And look, guys, let's address the elephant in the room. It feels true. In each and every moment, we feel like we make choices. You probably believe that you chose your breakfast this morning, that you decided how much sugar, if any, to put in your tea or coffee. You probably even believe that you chose whether to have tea or coffee in the first place. And at some point today, you no doubt believe that you chose to put on this podcast. And right about now, you may be experiencing a conscious deliberation about whether to turn it off or not. But all of these, quote, choices certainly feel self-authored. I mean, I gotta agree with that right off the bat. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't feel like I'm choosing the words that are coming out of my mouth. The question is there any evidence that I'm actually doing that? Is the feeling itself enough evidence to warrant belief in free will? I don't believe so. And ironically, I have no choice but to believe as I do. And you might be wondering why. What the hell am I talking about? Well, because beliefs are not choices, guys. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. The first thing that's important to discuss is this feeling of freedom that we all experience. I believe it's important to dispel this notion that our feelings are an accurate guide to the truth. So again, guys, I don't deny, I feel like I'm free. We all do, albeit, as I'll explain later, you can lose that feeling. But for now, I'm just happy to acknowledge, yes, I feel like I'm free. I do, in fact, feel like I chose what to eat for breakfast this morning. Again, I feel like I'm choosing the words that are coming out of my mouth. And I'm going to choose what to do tomorrow, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't have that feeling, and I know that you have it too. The question is, are feelings a reliable pathway to the truth? I'm not going to suggest that our feelings are always wrong. I'm merely suggesting that they're inconsistent, and consequently it's important to establish lines of evidence separate from our feelings if we want to legitimize a particular point of view. So if you're not convinced that our feelings can, and indeed do, lead us to mistaken conclusions, well then, here's a few examples. Example number one. It feels like the sky is up there and the ground is down there, but there isn't any up or down. We live on a spherical Earth. There's only gravity. Instead of up or down, there's just the state of being pulled in the direction of the Earth's gravitational force. Up is an illusion. Down is an illusion. But they're very powerful illusions. Please notice that while I sit here in the UK and, you know, if you're a listener right now sitting somewhere in Australia, your up is my down and my down is your up, which demonstrates that up and down are a nonsense. There is only the gravitational pull of the Earth. That's it. Up and down are illusions. Another good example of our feelings leading us awry is the flat Earth. Now, I don't often lend a sympathetic ear to the flat earthers, but let's give a dog a bone. Their mistaken conclusion is built upon an everyday experience and or feeling that we all have, and that's that the Earth is flat. It certainly doesn't feel in my day-to-day experience like I'm walking on a ball, and yet I am. I mean, that's undeniable. We don't experience a spherical Earth in our daily goings on. It feels like the Earth is flat. Of course, the evidence is overwhelming in the opposite direction. The flat earthers are wrong. Get over it. And if you'll allow me, I'll offer you one last example, an interpersonal one. I might feel that my fiance is loyal, but if I arrive home and discover her cheating on me, my feeling would be revealed to be in error. Again, guys, I mean, these are just some very simple examples. The point I'm wishing to make is that feelings are not a reliable pathway to truth. Again, I'm not denying that our feelings can be correct, but if they're correct, it's not because of the feeling. It's because the evidence separate from the feeling supports the fact that the feeling is correct. Feelings themselves do not constitute evidence for the truth of a conclusion. And, you know, I could go on, but suffice to say, our feelings, no matter how certain we are about them, can and indeed do very often mislead us. And that's why science is so important, guys, because it's the opposite of using feelings as a guide. It's about data, it's about evidence, it's about what can be proven. But I digress. The point I'm making is that our feeling that we're free is a feeling and nothing more. If you believe we're free, you're going to need actual evidence. So the question is there any? A feeling isn't enough to demonstrate that we're free. You're going to have to do better than that. So let's explore. I've got news for you guys. If you, quote, decide to turn off this podcast, for example, you won't do so because you're free. You'll do so because you want to, and you don't choose your wants. Now, what the hell do I mean by that? It's a strange statement, isn't it? You don't choose your wants. Well, credit must go to a rather prominent and influential YouTuber for the argument I'm about to unfurl. His name is Magic Skeptic, and as the name would suggest, he's a passionate skeptic and ardent supporter of what you might call Enlightenment ideals, you know, rationality and empirical standards and so forth. It's on his channel that I first encountered this argument, and it's very simple, and it goes something like this. Everything you've ever done in your life, everything, you've either done so because you wanted to or because you were forced to. I'll say that again. Everything you've ever done in your life, you've either done so because you wanted to or because you were forced to. Now, guys, that is in fact a true dichotomy. Now, what is a true dichotomy? According to Google, a true dichotomy is a pair of mutually exclusive choices which between them cover all possibilities. So in other words, guys, when I say that everything you've done in your life, you've either done so because you wanted to or because you were forced to, those two options, either wanting to or being forced to, cover all of the possibilities. There's no other way in which you could have done something or completed an action. You either did so because you wanted to or because you were forced to. It's a true dichotomy. There's no escaping that. A couple of examples will help to explain what a true dichotomy is. A number is either odd or even. Again, there's no escaping that. It doesn't matter what number you name, it's either odd or even, right? Another example will help as well. Existential claims. So if you're talking about whether or not something exists, God either exists or doesn't exist. That's a true dichotomy. God is either in the category of existence or in the category of non-existence. And the same is true with any other proposition about something which exists, right? That's a true dichotomy. So what I'm suggesting to you is that when it comes to all of the things you've ever done in your life, you either did them because you wanted to or because you were forced to. Again, that is a true dichotomy. If you think there's a way of escaping that, I promise you, you're just not thinking about it deeply enough. But if you do indeed want to challenge that particular point, please do jump into the comments below and let me know, because I am always willing to entertain the possibility that I'm mistaken, and if I am mistaken, I want to know where I'm mistaken so that I can update my point of view and potentially change my mind if indeed the evidence warrants it. But for now, it seems abundantly clear to me that everything you've ever done in your life, you did so because you wanted to or because you were forced to. Now, the question is, why does this actually matter? Well, guys, if indeed we're free, the freedom has to come in the want section, surely. If you're forced to do something, you're evidently not free. If I hold a gun to your head and I tell you to withdraw £500 from your bank account and give it to me, that was an action that you committed under duress. The extent to which you're free in that moment is minimal. right? Now, you could say, well, you're free to say no and get shot in the head, but obviously there are some very compelling forces at play there, your desire to remain alive and so forth. The question is, where is the freedom when it comes to your wants? Are we really free in what we want? Obviously, we agree that you're not free if you're forced to do something. So if there is freedom, it has to come from the other side of the dichotomy. It has to come from what you want. But as I've already said, you don't choose your wants. I'll give you an example. I want you right now to think of something you want. Okay? So, for example, I'm thinking right now of a delicious pizza. I really want a delicious pizza right now. You might think of something else. Think of something you want. Whatever it is, dear listener, think of something you want. I want you right now to choose not to want that thing. So I'm right now in my mind going to choose not to want delicious pizza. And what you'll notice if you try to do this is that it's quite impossible. You can't choose not to want something that you want. Similarly now, I'm going to invite you to think of something that you don't want. For example, I'm going to say out loud an example which I hope applies to all of us. I don't want to die. Okay? I don't want to die. And now I'm going to invite you again to want that thing you don't want. Try as you might, psychologically, in your mind, you will not be able to force yourself to want the thing you don't want. No matter how hard I try in my mind right now, I can't choose to want to die because I want to live. These are very, very simple thought experiments that you can perform yourself, and they demonstrate the truth of what I'm saying to you. We do not choose our wants. So now we come back to the dichotomy. Remember, everything you've ever done in your life, you did so because you wanted to or because you were forced to. Needless to say, you weren't free when you were forced to do something. So if there is freedom, it has to come from the want category. But as the thought experiment we just performed demonstrates, you don't choose your wants either. So where's the freedom? Now, some people will raise some interesting responses to this particular thought experiment. And I had a conversation with a person recently who gave me the example of the gym. They said, well, I don't want to go to the gym. Nobody's forcing me, and yet I still go. But there's the mistake. There is a want residing in there somewhere. You may not want to go to the gym, but there is another want that's winning the day. It might be the want in relation to your physical health. It might be a want in relation to your well-being. It doesn't matter what way you cut this, guys. If you are doing something and you're not being forced, there is a want residing in there somewhere, and you did not choose that want. Let's look at the gym goer response. The person who goes to the gym, even though they don't want to, what they really want is a nice physical body, for example. They want to have a physically attractive body, or they want to be healthier, they want to lose weight, etc. Whatever that want is, they can't choose not to want that thing they want. And that want is winning out over the lack of a desire to go to the gym. And everything you've ever done falls into this intricate ballet of wants and desires. And again, we don't choose our wants and desires. But some of you might accuse me of just playing a semantic word game here. I know that's been said of this particular argument in the past. I don't happen to believe that it is a semantic word game. If you listen to this podcast again, I'm sure you'll see that this argument is rather airtight. But look, let's imagine I'm wrong. Let's imagine that I am just playing with words and everything I've said thus far is bull. Surely then, you might argue, it's obvious that we have free will. But the question is, where is it? Where is this freedom to be found? As I acknowledged earlier, guys, we feel that we're free, but is there any biological, physiological, or psychological evidence for that? Let's reflect for a moment and explore the physical picture. All of your thoughts, feelings, and, quote, decisions correlate with brain states. In other words, guys, if a neuroscientist used an MRI or an EEG machine to study your brain, they'd be able to roughly correlate certain feelings and thoughts with particular parts of the brain. To put it another way, every thought you've ever had can be traced back to electrical signals and or the chemical composition of your brain. But where's the freedom in all of this? We don't control the synapses in our brains. We don't control the neurons or the electrical signals or the chemical composition. All of those things operate according to the laws of physics, and the laws of physics are outside of our control. For example, when your body becomes hungry, is the thought to eat something a freely occurring idea? You might argue that the choice occurs when you choose what to eat. But is what you prefer to eat a choice? Have you ever noticed that when you taste something for the first time, what you're actually doing is checking to see if your tongue likes whatever it is that you're tasting? Again, where's the freedom in that? Am I free to like coffee, if indeed, as it does for me at least, guys, makes me gag? And yet you still might suggest that my freedom resides in the fact that I could drink coffee in order to prove that I'm free. But that's just another preference. What might be the preference there could be described as something like my desire to prove that freedom is real. But again, I didn't choose that preference either. To simplify what I've said thus far, guys, one sentence covers it, and here it is. There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that we have control over our brain states. And our brain states are responsible for everything we do. To those of you who believe in free will, if that sentence doesn't shake you, then you may not have been paying attention. So let me say it again. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest that we have control over our brain states, and our brain states are responsible for everything we do. So guys, if our feeling of freedom can't be trusted, and there's no evidence at the level of the brain for free will, is the conversation over? Well, I believe it is. But again, our feeling of freedom is often so convincing that many of you listening right now may have already dismissed my argument despite the evidence I've put forth to support it. So to those of you who are still not convinced, I've got one final element to make you aware of, and it's this. You can actually momentarily lose that feeling of freedom that's baked into your psychology. I want to try a thought experiment with you right now. I want you to make your mind a blank, and in a moment I'm going to ask you to think of something. Not now, not right now, in a moment. When I ask you to think of something, I want you to pay attention to what happens in your mind. So if you're ready, we'll begin. I want you to think of a movie. Any movie. Just allow one to occur in consciousness right now. Got one? If you were paying close enough attention there, what you will have noticed is that the film you thought of simply pops into your mind. You didn't walk up to a vault of previously viewed films and select one. No, one merely manifests in consciousness. But how can we say that you chose this film? Why did that one pop into your mind and not another one? If the one that occurred was a film you watched recently, then were you really free to think of a film you didn't watch recently? If it was a random film, one which you may not have even seen before, can you actually quantify why that one popped into your mind and not another? Above all else, were you the author of the thought that occurred? To say that you chose the movie is arguably a contradiction, because you'd had to have been aware of it before it popped into your head. Even the language we use betrays the truth. Why do we use words like pop or occurred to describe the emergence of thoughts in our heads? Why do we say it popped into my mind? I'll tell you why. It's because those thoughts weren't there until they were, and you were caught off guard when they occurred. So how can we legitimately claim that we consciously choose these thoughts? And just to be clear, I'm not saying that our thoughts don't occur in the brain, but there doesn't appear to be any evidence that our conscious minds are responsible, which again challenges that conscious feeling of freedom we all experience. But hopefully the thought experiment we just did has shifted your intuitions. If you're still, however, unwavering in your support of the idea that we're free, I'm actually not sure there's much I could say to change your mind. But just ask yourself, guys, if your thoughts are really free, then why do we sometimes get thoughts stuck in our heads that we can't unthink? Surely if our thoughts are free, we could just dismiss that which we no longer wish to think about. A bit of a personal example, and I don't mean to shock anybody or upset anybody with what I'm about to describe, but I very recently got a thought stuck in my head about my fiance, I kept thinking that she was going to die. I kept imagining her death in the most egregious and awful and brutal circumstances. And I didn't want to have these thoughts, but they just kept occurring. Now, presumably those thoughts occurred because I love her and I care about her and I want her to be safe and so on, and because I'm her partner, and there's a lot of reasons why those thoughts would occur. But if our thoughts are free, why couldn't I unshackle myself from those particularly nasty thoughts? Why wasn't I able to relinquish myself from the burden? The short answer is, guys, is because we're not free. If our thoughts were free, I would be simply able to unthink those nasty negative thoughts, and it would all be okay. But those thoughts consumed my mind. I wasn't able to stop thinking them. I certainly wasn't choosing them. Again, if I could choose, I would choose not to think them. But I was a prisoner to those thoughts. I'm happy to report, by the way, that those thoughts have since yielded, and I now have a healthier mindset again. But again, I don't know why they went away. I didn't choose for them to go away. I wanted them to go away, but they damn well stuck around long enough to disturb me, I'll tell you that much. And I'm sure if you're listening to this, you'll have had similar experiences in your life, where a thought just captures your mind and you can't get it out of there. So guys, why can't I choose to unthink thoughts that I don't want to think? More importantly, why can't I choose my beliefs? If you think you can, by the way, just try right now believing something you don't believe. We tried this earlier with tastes and desires. I can't choose to like coffee, for example. But beliefs are different from taste. But we can't choose our beliefs either. Choose, for example, to believe that I am God. Do that right now. In your mind, I want you to choose to believe that Magic Dara is God. And what you'll notice is that that's quite impossible. You cannot choose to believe something which you know not to be true. Being convinced of something, guys, is an involuntary act. Being convinced is not a choice. If I hold out my hand and I tell you that there's a ball in my clenched fist, and then I open my hand to reveal that said ball is in fact in my hand, your belief that the ball is in my hand will be involuntary. You would not be able to choose not to believe that the ball is in my hand. Being convinced is not a choice. And what we believe occurs as a consequence of being convinced. Believing that I am God as a choice is impossible because beliefs are not choices. And lastly, guys, if we're free, just to take another example, why does depression exist? Why don't depressed people just choose happy thoughts? It's almost as if we're prisoners to our thoughts. We aren't the authors of our thoughts. We are merely the witnesses of what occurs in consciousness. So before we wrap up, I want to discuss some of the consequences of coming to believe as I believe. So I don't believe in free will. And people in this conversation very often shift, rather quickly I might add, to a conversation about the consequences of losing one's belief in free will. They say things like, are we not responsible for our actions then? And can you not take pride in anything you do if indeed you didn't choose to do anything? And guys, what I'll say is this. Losing my belief in free will has actually been a therapeutic experience. I'll give you a couple of examples. Speaking as someone who has suffered with depression in the past, losing my belief in free will actually helped me to deal with my depression. How? Let me explain. In the past, when I experienced depression, I would wrestle with the feeling. I would wake up with that feeling that made me not want to get out of bed. I would wake up with that feeling that frankly would make me not want to be alive anymore. And I would wrestle with it. I would try to battle it in my mind. I would try and get the negative thoughts out of my head. I would be like, just get out of my head. I want to be happy. And I used to really, really wrestle with it and struggle. And that actually made it worse. Whereas now, if I wake up and I am a prisoner to negative thoughts, I simply accept it. When I wake up and depression has visited my doorstep once again, I lay there and I think to myself, okay, today is just going to be one of those days. I'm not going to fight it. These thoughts will pass when they pass, and there's nothing I can do about it. And by adopting that mindset, the negative thoughts at least in my experience, pass by much more quickly. Now, perhaps that experience is specific to me, and if you come to lose your belief in free will and you suffer from depression, you'll have a different experience. All I can do right now on this specific point is speak from my very own experience and tell you that losing my belief in free will helped with my tendency to experience depression. It was enormously helpful, but it's helpful in other ways too. Whenever I have a nasty or a negative thought that I'm not proud of, I no longer hold on to it. I no longer experience a sense of guilt because I understand now that the occurrence of that thought was completely outside of my control. Let's say, for example, I'm speaking to someone who I don't like, and all I experience in my mind is a sense of hatred. Let's say I experience a really putrid, toxic sense of hatred that this person really doesn't deserve. But I feel that feeling anyway. Well, in the past, after that conversation ended, I would normally feel a sense of guilt. I would feel, oh, they really don't deserve that kind of feeling that I have in my mind. But now I understand that those feelings occurring, again, are completely outside of my control. So I don't chastise myself with feelings of guilt. All of these claims, by the way, sound like choices. When I say that I don't chastise myself, what I'm not saying is that I have chosen not to chastise myself. What I'm actually saying is that my will, not my free will I might add, my will is now such that it doesn't chastise itself, because it would be irrational to do so. As a side note, I think it's important to mention here that losing one's belief in free will can also help with relationships, romantic or otherwise, because if the person you're talking with is behaving like an asshole, or the person who's your friend or you're in a relationship with is behaving like an asshole, you come to understand that they're not actually choosing to be an asshole. And so it makes it easier to deal with their assholery. So, yeah, again, that's just another benefit of coming to lose your belief in free will. It actually acts as what you might describe as a social lubricant. It improves your interpersonal relationships because you're willing to give people a little bit more leeway when it comes to their imperfections. And I guess, nobody is perfect. I'm certainly not, but I digress. The other thing that people bring up in relation to free will is criminals. Oh, so we just shouldn't punish criminals. We shouldn't send people to prison because nobody really chose to do anything. Well, no, that's not what I would say at all. There's nothing about losing one's belief in free will that robs us of our justice system or punitive measures. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Allow me to explain. Sure, there's no free will, but as thinking agents, we're still motivated and influenced by our environment. For example, the dog that licks the furnace and consequently scalds his tongue is very unlikely to do so again. The same is true with human beings. Because the vast majority of us have an evolutionary and involuntary desire to maintain our well-being and a good quality of life, punishments such as imprisonment act as deterrents for committing immoral acts or breaking the law. Remember, if there's no free will, our thoughts and actions could only possibly be caused by forces outside of our control, such as genetics, brain states, and even the environment. And if our environment is one that punishes, for example, stealing, then most thinking agents will be conditioned not to steal. So you see, guys, there's nothing about the absence of free will that results in the dissolution of our justice system. In fact, an understanding of the absence of free will might actually enhance the justice system, because we would be locking up criminals purely out of practicality and not because we harbour a toxic feeling of vengeance towards them. I'll conclude by quoting the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who said, "People don't have ideas. Ideas have people." And while Jung wasn't commenting specifically on free will when he uttered these words, I think they're remarkably and profoundly relevant to the discussion we've had today. And on the note of that discussion, guys, if you enjoyed it, please do consider dropping a like on the video. And if you've been enjoying my content more generally, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. I hope today is the day that I earned your subscription. And I guess, guys, last but not least, if this topic did interest you, if it has shifted your intuitions, or indeed if it hasn't and you can see where I've made a mistake, please do jump into the comments below and let me know. My number one goal with this podcast is to open a dialogue. I'm interested in what's true. I'm not interested in being correct. I want to know what's true. As far as I can tell, given what I've discussed today, there isn't any evidence for free will. But if you found any, please do let me know, because I'd love to hear it. Thanks for listening to the podcast today, guys. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next one. All the best.